Security, remove him. He is not an employee and he just shut down our entire Eastern network, Daniel ordered. The order cut through the command center louder than the alarms. Two security officers moved toward the man standing beneath the wall of glowing maps. He wore a borrowed-looking gray suit, a slightly frayed blue tie, and the visitor badge of someone who had entered the building for an interview 3 hours earlier. Now every distribution center from Chicago to Boston was frozen because of him. Claire Donovan reached for the tablet in his hand. "Give me that before you make this worse." Marcus Cole pulled it against his chest. On the main screen, hundreds of shipment markers had turned red. Beside them, a number climbed into real time, measuring losses in dollars per second. Daniel Rusk pointed at the display. "Every minute this system stays down costs us nearly $400,000. Marcus looked past him at a smaller window most of the executives had ignored. A broken video connection showed a dark warehouse, flashing emergency lights, and the blurred shape of a man shouting over an alarm. "You're counting delayed boxes," Marcus said. "I'm counting the people you locked behind them." The room went still. The man on the screen was Luis Mendoza, night shift supervisor at the company's Newark distribution center. His voice cracked through the speakers. "We still have 11 people in the East sorting zone. The emergency doors aren't responding, and the backup power for the medical refrigeration unit is dropping." Daniel turned toward the control desk. "Restore the network now." Marcus did not move. Claire's face hardened. "You have already lost any chance of working here. If you continue interfering with this company's systems, you may be held personally responsible." The security officer stepped closer. Elena Ward stood at the far end of the room, silent, watching Marcus hold a small red card between two fingers. "How do you know those employees are still inside?" she asked. Marcus looked at the card. "Because 3 hours ago, your interview system asked me what I do when something cannot be allowed to fail." 3 hours earlier, Marcus Cole had been alone in an elevator, practicing how to sound like a man with nothing to lose. That morning, he woke at 5:12 without an alarm. For a few seconds, he remained on the couch beneath a blanket too thin for a Chicago winter and listened to the apartment. The radiator knocked behind the wall. A bus sighed to a stop outside. From the bedroom came the soft, uneven breathing of his 9-year-old daughter. Marcus sat up and checked the time again, although he already knew it. He knew every important time that day. The school bus would arrive at 7:18. His interview began at 9. The temporary shift he had called out from started at 10:30. Sophie's presentation had been moved to 5:15. His landlord had given him until Friday to cover the missing half of the rent. The numbers were not written anywhere. Marcus carried them inside him. He crossed the living room and entered the kitchen, where 4 colored cards were held to the refrigerator by magnets. Red meant something could not fail. Yellow meant it had to be handled that day. Blue meant he needed help. Green meant it could wait. The system had begun 5 years earlier, during the first month after Hannah died. At the time, Sophie was 4. Marcus had forgotten to pay the electricity bill, and the refrigerator stopped working while he was at. He came home to spoiled food, a frightened child, and 3 missed calls from the school nurse because Sophie had developed a fever. That night, he tore colored paper from an old craft box and wrote down everything he was trying to hold in his head. Hannah's funeral paperwork, the mortgage cancellation form, Sophie's medication, his work schedule, groceries, a call to his sister in Milwaukee. He placed each task beneath one of 4 words: cannot fail. Today. Need help? Can wait. Sophie, sitting at the table in her pajamas, moved her fever medicine beneath the red card. "People go first," she said. Marcus had never forgotten it. Now the cards organized their apartment, their bills, school projects, doctor appointments, groceries, and the interview that might finally change their lives. Marcus moved interview, Ward Meridian, from yellow to red. Behind him, Sophie said, "You're moving it too early." He turned. She stood in the doorway, wearing mismatched socks and one braid half undone. "You're supposed to move things after breakfast. Today is an exception." "You said exceptions are how systems break." Marcus stared at her. She smiled. It was Hannah's smile. Not in shape, but in timing. Hannah had always smiled just after making him realize he had contradicted himself. "Go brush your teeth," Marcus said. Sophie walked toward the bathroom, then stopped. "You slept on the couch again?" "I fell asleep reading." "You weren't reading." "I was thinking with my eyes closed." "That's sleeping." Marcus pointed down the hallway. "Teeth." While Sophie dressed, Marcus heated oatmeal and opened the envelope containing the rent notice. He did not read it. The words had not changed since the previous evening. He placed it beneath the green card, then immediately moved it to yellow. Sophie returned wearing her school uniform and watched him. "That one should be red. It's being handled. By Friday? Before Friday." "You always say before when you don't know how." Marcus folded the notice and put it inside a drawer. "You're 9. I know. You are not responsible for the rent. I know. You're supposed to be thinking about your presentation. I am. That's why I need to know if we're still going to live close enough for me to go to that school." Marcus set the spoon down. Sophie looked away first. That frightened him more than the question. He crouched beside her. "We are not losing the apartment. You said we weren't losing the car. That was different. You said we weren't losing the old apartment. That was also different." She looked at him again. Marcus wished children measured love instead of accuracy. He touched the edge of her school badge. "I have an interview this morning." "I know. And tonight, I will be in the front row. You said that last time. The warehouse changed my shift." "You could tell them no. That's easier after someone hires you permanently." Sophie studied him. "Will this place hire you permanently?" "I'm going to give them a reason." He returned to the kitchen counter and opened the folder he had prepared. Inside were 3 copies of his resume, his associate degree certificate, letters of recommendation, and a page of interview questions. On top was the blue tie Hannah had bought him 12 years earlier after his first promotion. The fabric near the narrow end had begun to fade. Marcus had considered wearing a newer tie borrowed from his neighbor, but the blue one belonged to a version of his life that had once seemed to be moving in a straight line. Hannah had tied it around his neck in their first apartment and said, "Now you look like someone who knows what he's doing." He had laughed. "I do know what I'm doing." "No, you know what everyone else is doing. That's why they promoted you." Marcus wore the tie. Sophie watched him struggle with the knot. "Mom did it better." "Your mother did everything better when someone else was watching." "That doesn't make sense." "It would to her." He checked his reflection in the dark kitchen window. The suit belonged to him, but it had not fit correctly since he lost weight during the year after Hannah's death. The shoulders sat too wide, and the sleeves had been shortened twice. The shoes were polished. The shirt was clean. The resume was strong enough to earn interviews and strange enough to end them. 5 employers in 6 years. 1 14-month gap, 3 temporary contracts. 1 position that lasted only 9 months. Marcus had learned that recruiters used the word journey when they liked a complicated resume and instability when they did not. He placed the colored cards inside his folder. Sophie finished her oatmeal, then went to the refrigerator. "What are you doing?" Marcus asked. "Nothing." She held the cards behind her back. "Sophie, I'm fixing one. The system is already fixed." "That's not what a system means." She returned the cards to the folder and closed it before he could inspect them. The school bus honked outside. Marcus helped her with her coat and walked her downstairs. Snow from the previous evening had hardened along the sidewalk. Before boarding, Sophie turned. "Front row." "Before I go on?" "Before anyone goes on." She held out her little finger. Marcus linked his around it. "I promise." The bus pulled away. Marcus checked the time. 7:21. The train he planned to catch left in 9 minutes. He locked the apartment, hurried 3 blocks to the station, and reached the platform just as the doors closed. For 1 second, he stood in the snow and watched the train leave without him. Then he opened the transit app. The next train would make him late. A bus could get him downtown with 12 minutes to spare if traffic remained light. Traffic did not remain light. At 8:42, Marcus entered Ward Meridian Tower with snow melting on his shoulders. The lobby looked designed to make ordinary people move more quietly. Polished stone floors reflected 30-foot windows. A suspended sculpture shaped like interlocking routes hung above the security desk. Employees crossed the lobby carrying coffee, phones, and the confidence of people who knew exactly which elevator to enter. Marcus checked in. The receptionist scanned his identification and printed a visitor badge. 38th floor, she said. Talent Strategy Reception. Marcus thanked her and walked toward the elevators. He had 17 minutes. The first elevator was crowded. He let it go. The second arrived empty. Marcus stepped inside, pressed 38, and opened the interview page. The doors closed. He looked at his reflection in the metal. "Tell us about yourself," he said quietly. "I am an operations professional with more than 10 years of experience in inventory control, process improvement, and team leadership." The answer sounded dead. He tried again. "My career has given me experience across several operational environments." That sounded like a person trying to hide the environments. The elevator passed the 8th floor. Marcus looked at the questions. "Describe a time you managed competing priorities." He straightened his shoulders. "At Northline Distribution, I created a priority matrix that reduced fulfillment errors by 18%. The percentage was correct. The sentence was not." He tried a fourth time. "When several things go wrong at once, I first separate what is urgent from what only feels urgent." The elevator stopped at 12. The doors opened. A woman entered wearing a dark navy suit beneath a camel-colored coat. She appeared to be in her mid-40s, with black hair cut neatly at her jaw and no visible company badge. She carried a leather folder, but no laptop. Marcus stepped aside. She did not press a button. The doors closed. He lowered the page. For 3 floors, neither spoke. The woman looked at the floor indicator. Marcus checked the time. 8 minutes remained before the interview. He could wait in silence or continue practicing. He continued. "Describe your leadership style." He read under his breath. He looked at his reflection. "I believe in collaborative leadership, clear communication, and accountability." He stopped. The woman glanced at him. Marcus shook his head. "That answer means nothing." She looked forward again. He was not sure whether he had spoken to her. "Sorry," he said. "Interview." "I assumed." "I'm trying not to sound rehearsed." "You sound rehearsed." Marcus laughed once. "That obvious?" "Only when you use words you would never use outside an interview." He looked down at the page. "Collaborative leadership and accountability. I use accountability, not 3 words after collaborative." The elevator continued upward. Marcus folded the question sheet. "Fair." The woman's phone vibrated. She read the screen but did not respond. Marcus returned to the next question. "What is your greatest professional weakness?" He took a breath. "I sometimes take on too much responsibility because I care deeply about outcomes." The woman raised one eyebrow. Marcus lowered the page again. "That one's bad too? That one means you want them to believe your weakness is being too useful. That is what they expect." "Is it true?" Marcus looked at the numbers above the door. The elevator slowed near the 21st floor, then stopped between floors. The lights flickered. A small mechanical sound came from above them. Marcus gripped the folder. The woman pressed the call button. A voice answered through the speaker. "Elevator 12 has paused during a system reset. Please remain inside. Movement should resume within 3 to 5 minutes." Marcus checked the time. The interview started in 7. His phone rang. "Sophie," he answered immediately. "Are you all right?" "I'm at school." "What happened?" "Ms. Green changed the time." "To what?" 4:45. Marcus closed his eyes. "That's 30 minutes earlier. She said the district people are coming, so everything moved." "I'll be there." "Dad." "I said I'll be there." "You're in the interview?" "Almost. You sound like you're in a bathroom." "I'm in an elevator." "With people?" Marcus glanced at the woman. "One person. Are you doing the answers?" "I was." "Did you use the fake words?" The woman turned slightly away. hiding what might have been a smile. Marcus lowered his voice. Go to class. Front row. Front row. Before I go on. Before anyone goes on. He ended the call. For a moment, only the ventilation fan could be heard. The woman asked, Your daughter? Yes. How old? And you're going to make a 4:45 school presentation after an interview downtown, and a shift that starts at 10:30. You're working today. If the interview ends on time. And if it doesn't? I lose the shift. The answer came out too quickly. Marcus reopened his folder. He did not want sympathy from a stranger. He wanted the elevator to move. The woman watched him look at the questions. What is your real weakness? She asked. Marcus glanced at her. That was not an invitation to conduct the interview. You were already conducting one. He looked at the page. The elevator remained still. My real weakness is time. Managing it? Having enough of it. The woman said nothing. Marcus considered stopping. Instead, perhaps because she was a stranger, he continued. I'm the only parent in my house. Every hour I spend at work is an hour someone else has to watch my daughter, and that costs money that comes out of the work paying for it. Every schedule change has a consequence. Every late shift moves something else. School, food, rent, sleep. His voice became steadier as he spoke. So I learned to stop treating every problem like it deserves equal attention. It doesn't. Some things are loud. Some things are expensive. Some things make managers angry. But only a few things cannot be allowed to fail. The woman looked down at the folder beneath his hand. How do you decide? Marcus opened it and removed the 4 colored cards. This is going to look ridiculous. I haven't decided yet. He held up the red card. Red means someone gets hurt, loses something essential, or cannot recover from the consequence. He held up yellow. Yellow means it must be handled today, but the damage is reversible. Blue. Blue means I cannot solve it alone. Green means it can wait, even if someone important is shouting. The woman studied the cards. Where did you learn that? My kitchen. She looked at him. My daughter and I built it after her mother died. The elevator started moving. Marcus returned the cards to the folder. The woman asked, What happened to your wife? He took a second before answering. Cardiac arrest. She was 33. I'm sorry. Thank you. The elevator passed 28. The woman looked at the panel. Marcus noticed the number 35 glowing faintly beneath 38. She must have selected it before he entered. Or perhaps the elevator had registered her badge automatically. When the doors opened on 35, she did not leave. Marcus looked at her. Isn't this yours? I can take the stairs down later. The doors closed. He did not understand, but he had no time to ask. The elevator resumed. The woman said, Try the leadership question again. Marcus stared at his reflection. I don't ask people to care about a system until they understand who gets hurt when it fails. The answer hung between them. The doors opened on 38. Marcus stepped out. Better? He asked. Yes. He turned toward reception. Behind him, the woman remained inside for 2 seconds, then stepped out as well. Marcus did not see her walk in the opposite direction. At the reception desk, a young assistant named Noah took his name and asked him to sit. Marcus had arrived with 2 minutes remaining. He adjusted his tie, wiped the moisture from his shoes, and studied the glass wall opposite him. Inside a conference room, Claire Donovan spoke to Daniel Rusk while examining a tablet. Claire wore a dark green jacket and thin glasses. Daniel's sleeves were rolled to his elbows, as though he wanted everyone to know he'd already been working longer than they had. Marcus recognized neither. Claire looked through the glass at him, then back at the tablet. Daniel shook his head. The gesture was small, but Marcus had attended enough interviews to recognize a decision made before the door opened. Noah approached. They're ready for you? Marcus entered. Claire stood first. Marcus Cole. Claire Donovan, Chief People Officer. Daniel offered his hand without rising. Daniel Rusk, Operation. Marcus sat across from them. A third chair at the end of the table remained empty. Claire began with questions about his resume. They were not hostile at first. Why had he left Northline? The contract ended. Why had he worked only 9 months at Westbridge Supply? The company moved his department to Indiana. Why had he left Hartwell before completing a year? The shift changed from days to rotating overnights, and he could not secure childcare. Claire's pen stopped. So the schedule became incompatible with your personal obligations. My parental responsibilities, yes. The coordinator role occasionally requires flexibility. I understand. How much flexibility? Daniel looked at Claire. She answered, enough that we cannot guarantee every week will look the same. Marcus thought of Sophie on the school stage. He thought of the front row. I can work within defined emergency expectations, he said. What I cannot do is accept permanent unpredictability disguised as commitment. Claire leaned back. That is a strong statement during an interview. It is a truthful one. Daniel looked at Marcus's resume. You've supervised no more than 32 people. Directly, this role interacts with 6 facilities and more than 400 operators. Yes. You have no experience at that scale. I have experience designing processes used by people I never personally met. Daniel looked up. Where? At Fairland Distribution. That company was acquired. Yes. Your resume says you were an inventory lead. I was. That does not sound like process design. The title and the work were different. Claire touched the tablet. Your employment history produces a low continuity score. Marcus looked at her. A what? Our evaluation model considers duration, progression, schedule reliability, geographic stability, and several other factors. Geographic stability. You have had 3 addresses in 5 years. Marcus had not provided his address history. Claire saw the question in his face. It is derived from standard verification data. I moved because one building was sold, and another raised the rent by 40%. The model does not make moral judgments. It just lowers the score. It identifies patterns associated with retention risk. Marcus looked toward the empty chair. Was I invited here to explain the pattern? Or had the model already decided what it meant? Daniel closed the folder. Claire replied evenly. You were invited because you met the minimum technical requirements. Minimum? Your resume is unconventional. Marcus thought of the 47 applications he had submitted during the previous year. He thought of every recruiter who praised his perseverance before selecting someone whose career required less explanation. Claire continued. The largest concern is your 14-month employment gap. My wife died. The words changed the room. Daniel looked down. Claire's voice softened, but only slightly. I am sorry. However, the gap still affects the assessment. I was raising a 4-year-old whose mother disappeared from her life in one afternoon. I understand that was difficult. No, you understand the sentence. That is not the same thing. Daniel shifted in his chair. Claire folded her hands. We have to evaluate whether candidates can meet the demands of the position. I raised a child, worked nights, completed school, and kept us housed during those 14 months. That is admirable. Marcus knew that word. Admirable meant emotionally respectable but professionally irrelevant. Claire glanced at Daniel. We should discuss your leadership style. Marcus saw the interview closing. He could return to the rehearsed answer. Collaborative leadership. Clear communication. Accountability. Instead, he remembered the woman in the elevator. I don't ask people to care about a system until they understand who gets hurt when it fails. Daniel studied him. Claire said, that sounds compelling. What does it mean, operationally? It means people follow procedures better when procedures make sense. If an operator believes a scan exists only to improve a manager's report, they'll find ways around it. If they understand that the scan prevents the wrong medication from reaching the wrong hospital, they protect it. Daniel leaned forward. You're assuming operators need an emotional story to perform basic tasks. No. I'm saying people perform better when leadership respects their intelligence enough to explain consequences. Claire tapped the tablet. Your previous manager described you as highly capable but resistant to schedule changes. Marcus almost laughed. My previous manager changed our shift with 12 hours notice for 11 consecutive weeks. The business required flexibility. The business required planning. Flexibility was what they demanded from everyone below the person who failed to plan. Daniel looked toward Claire. The interview was over. Marcus felt it. Claire placed the pen beside the tablet. "Thank you for coming in. We have several candidates." The door opened. The woman from the elevator entered. Marcus stopped breathing for half a second. Her camel coat was gone. A small silver pin bearing the Ward Meridian emblem rested on her navy jacket. Claire stood immediately. Daniel rose. "Elena," Claire said, "I thought you were in the quarterly review." "I was." The woman looked at Marcus. "Mr. Cole." He stood. "You work here?" Daniel's expression shifted. Claire said, "Marcus, this is Elena Ward, our founder and chief executive officer." Marcus looked from Elena to the empty chair. Everything he had said in the elevator returned at once. The fake weakness, the missed shift, the rent he had not mentioned but felt sure she somehow knew. The cards, his wife, his daughter. He sat only after Elena did. Claire asked, "Is there a reason you wanted to join this interview?" "Yes." Elena opened the leather folder she had carried in the elevator. Inside was a printed copy of Marcus's resume. Claire's posture became more rigid. Elena looked at Marcus. "Would you answer the leadership question the way you answered it downstairs?" Marcus's mouth felt dry. "I thought I was talking to myself." That was why the answer was useful. Daniel exchanged a glance with Claire. Marcus said, "I don't know whether that makes this more or less appropriate." "Neither do I," Elena said. "So let's keep the question professional." She turned to Claire. "You said his continuity score was low, significantly below threshold. Yet he is here." Claire hesitated. "You requested that his application be restored." Marcus looked at Elena. "Restored?" Claire's expression showed that the word had escaped before she intended it to. Elena did not answer immediately. Marcus asked, "Was my application rejected?" "The initial screening did not advance you," Elena said. "Then why am I here?" "I saw your resume in an exception report," Claire corrected her. "You saw a partial record." "I saw enough to ask why the system had eliminated someone whose recommendations described him as the strongest operator in 3 different facilities." Marcus looked at Claire. "How many people did the system eliminate?" "That information is not relevant to your interview," she said. "It became relevant when you told me the system does not make moral judgments." Claire removed her glasses. Daniel intervened. "Let's return to the position." Elena looked at Marcus. "Why did you reject the promotion at Northline?" He had not been asked that directly in previous interviews. Usually, recruiters saw decline promotion as proof that ambition had limits. Marcus answered, "My wife died 6 weeks before they offered it." Elena said nothing. "The role required travel 4 nights a week. My daughter had stopped sleeping unless she knew I was in the apartment. She checked the couch every night to make sure I had not disappeared too." Claire's eyes lowered briefly. "I asked Northline for 6 months before accepting. They gave me 48 hours. And you declined," Daniel said. "Yes. Do you regret it?" Marcus thought carefully. "I regret that the decision cost more than I expected. I do not regret making it." Claire asked, "Do you believe career advancement should always accommodate personal circumstances?" "No." "Then what should Northline have done? Decided whether they wanted the best supervisor or the most immediately available one. Those are not always the same person." Claire said, "Availability is part of performance. So is judgment." Marcus heard the sharpness in his voice and lowered it. "I did not step away from responsibility. I chose the responsibility no one else could take." Daniel's face changed first. Not sympathy. Recognition. The tablet beside him vibrated. He glanced at it, then ignored it. It vibrated again. A notification appeared on the conference room display. "Eastern routing delay. Newark node." Daniel picked up the tablet. "Excuse me." He opened the alert. Claire turned toward Elena. "We have a 10 o'clock operational review. Perhaps we should conclude." Daniel's thumb moved quickly across the screen. "The Newark automation is duplicating lane assignments." Elena looked at the display. "How many shipments?" 212, increasing. "Medical?" "Mixed." Marcus saw the map before Daniel minimized it. The alert markers were arranged by delay time, not consequence. Daniel stood. I need to get upstairs. Elena remained seated. Can the team handle it? They are handling it. Another alert appeared. Marcus noticed 2 shipment codes repeating. He had seen the structure before. Not the company system, but the pattern. Daniel moved toward the door. Marcus said, "Those 2 routes are feeding each other." Daniel stopped. What? The Newark outbound queue and the Philadelphia transfer queue. Each is treating the other as available overflow. Daniel returned to the screen. That's not possible. It is if both lost local verification. Daniel opened a second panel. The room display filled with routing data. Claire said, "Marcus, this is not part of the interview." "No, it isn't." He looked at Daniel. "Do your facilities assign priority by deadline, among other variables?" "Human safety." "Obviously." "Where?" Daniel looked at him. Marcus pointed at the screen. "The red alerts mean late. Yellow means at risk of being late. Green means on schedule." "Yes." "Where is the category for something that cannot fail, even if it is not late yet?" Daniel's irritation increased. "The system weighs product class, client status, temperature sensitivity, and contractual priority. But the people on the floor see color. They are trained to interpret the code. Under pressure, people follow what is visible." Daniel crossed his arms. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Marcus opened his folder and placed the 4 cards on the table. Claire stared at them. Elena did not. "Separate the alerts by consequence," Marcus said. "Not just by deadline." Daniel almost smiled. "This is a national logistics network, not a kitchen wall. The difference is scale. The decision is the same." Marcus moved the red card to the center of the table. "Anything involving immediate safety, medical integrity, or irreversible loss goes here." He held yellow beside it. "Anything contractually urgent but recoverable goes here." Blue. "Anything local teams cannot solve without outside support." Green. "Everything else," Daniel said. "That is an oversimplification. It is a first response. Complexity comes after people know what to protect." Elena asked, "How long would it take to test?" Daniel answered before Marcus could. "We are not letting an applicant reorganize live operation." The display flashed again. 100 additional shipments entered delay status. Daniel swore under his breath. He called the command center. Marcus sat back. The interview had ended, whether anyone admitted it or not. He should leave. His shift had started 12 minutes earlier. His supervisor had already sent 2 messages. The second read, "Do not come in. Call me." Marcus placed the cards back in his folder. Elena noticed. "Stay. I have lost today's shift." "I'm sorry." Being sorry does not pay for it. The sentence landed harder than he intended. Claire's eyes narrowed. Elena accepted it without reaction. "You're right." Daniel finished the call. "They're manually separating temperature-controlled loads. The rest will hold." Marcus asked, "What about worker access?" Daniel looked at him. "What about it? When routes duplicate, do dock doors lock to prevent conflicting loading?" "Temporarily." "And people? Operators cannot enter active lanes." "That's not what I asked." "Mr. Cole, you have made your point." An operations analyst entered and handed Daniel a printed sheet. Daniel scanned it. His expression tightened. Elena asked, "What is it?" "Routing is stabilizing." The analyst shook her head. "Only in Chicago? Newark is still duplicating assignments." Daniel looked again. Marcus saw the top row. A code beginning with FDL7. His stomach tightened. "Where did you get that priority format?" Daniel looked up. "What?" "FDL, 7-character class followed by a destination rank. That is internal." "I built it." Silence. Claire said, "I'm sorry." "At Fairland Distribution, we used F for fixed, D for deadline, L for loss severity." Daniel looked at the analyst. "Is that what it means?" She hesitated. "It is derived from the legacy Fairland framework." Marcus laughed once, without humor. Daniel asked, "How would you know that?" because the original spreadsheet had a typo in the fourth column. I wrote receivable instead of receivable for 6 months. The analyst scrolled. Her eyes widened. It's still in the legacy field label. Claire turned toward Marcus. Did someone provide you with company materials before this interview? No. You expect us to believe you independently recognized a confidential framework from a 2-second glance? It was not confidential when I made it. Daniel picked up Marcus's resume. You were an inventory lead. I designed the priority method because our manager could not stop 3 facilities from sending the same emergency orders to each other. Was it documented? Yes. Under your name? Marcus paused. The answer mattered. I sent it to my manager. That is not what I asked. I don't know what happened after I left. Claire leaned forward. This creates a serious concern. For whom? For the integrity of this interview. Marcus stared at her. You think I copied your system? We need to establish how you obtained familiarity with it. Elena spoke. Claire, we cannot ignore this. Daniel looked at the analyst. Pull the Fairland acquisition archive. The analyst left. Marcus closed his folder. I'm done. Elena said, sit down. No. Marcus, you invited me into a process that had already rejected me. You used a system built partly from work I was never credited for. And now that I recognized it, I'm being treated like a thief, Claire said. No one called you a thief? You called my knowledge a concern. It is. Marcus stood. His visitor badge caught on the edge of the table and tore free. It landed beside the red car. Elena looked at the badge, then at him. Give me 10 minutes. For what? To find out who is right. I know who is right. I need evidence. So did every person who took my work. Marcus moved toward the door. Elena's voice stopped him. If you walk out now, Claire's concern becomes the only documented version of what happened. He turned. Is that a threat? No. It is an unfair reality. Marcus hated that she was right. He returned to the chair, but did not sit. The analyst came back carrying an old acquisition file and a laptop. Daniel opened the scanned documents. There were transfer agreements, process maps, staffing records, and consultant reports. The analyst searched FDL. A spreadsheet appeared. At the bottom of the page, beneath a copied process chart, where the initials MC Marcus leaned toward the screen. The chart was his. The colors had changed. The company logo was new. The sequence was identical. Daniel scrolled to the source page. Created by Thomas Bell, Regional Operations Consultant. Marcus recognized the name. Thomas Bell had been his manager at Fairland. He had asked Marcus to send the spreadsheet before a quarterly review. 2 months later, Marcus left when Sophie's daycare closed and his schedule request was denied. Thomas never mentioned the method again. Elena looked at Daniel. Who hired Bell as a consultant? Daniel's face answered before he spoke. I did. When? After the Fairland acquisition. Based on what? His integration framework. Marcus looked at the annual consultant payment listed in the file. It was more than he had earned during 3 years at Fairland. Claire said quietly, the source initials are not conclusive. Marcus turned toward her. They are not. The document does not prove ownership. It proves I did not steal it from you. Claire did not answer. Elena closed the laptop. Marcus was rejected by a system using operational logic derived from his own work. Daniel objected. That is not a fair characterization. It is an accurate one. The modern platform is far beyond this spreadsheet. Yet the core classification remains. Daniel looked at Marcus. We can resolve the authorship separately. Marcus slipped the cards into his folder. There is nothing to resolve. Elena said, we owe you compensation. I did not ask for compensation. You deserve credit. I deserved it when it could have changed my career. No one responded. That was the part apologies never reached. Credit given after years of exclusion did not return the jobs, the rent notices, the nights Sophie waited in daycare after closing, or the interviews where managers asked why his progression had stalled. Elena said, let us finish the interview. Marcus stared at her. You still think this is an interview? I think you should have the opportunity. No. You think I should be grateful that the same company that rejected me is willing to reconsider after discovering it already used my work. That is not what I think. Then what do you think? Elena took a breath. I think I lead a company that has confused what it can measure with what matters. I think I approved systems I did not examine closely enough. And I think asking you to trust us now would be unreasonable. Marcus waited. But I also think walking away will not change any of it. That sounds convenient for you. It is. The honesty unsettled him. Before he could answer, the command center called Daniel again. This time he activated the speaker. A supervisor spoke rapidly. Newark's local override is not responding. We have a storm-related voltage drop, and the system keeps reopening closed lanes. Daniel asked, how many loads affected? 400 plus. What about staff? We're confirming. Marcus looked at the red card inside his folder. Daniel said, move all temperature-controlled medical shipments to Philadelphia. The supervisor hesitated. Philadelphia is already receiving Newark overflow. Then redirect standard freight west. Marcus interrupted. That creates another loop. Daniel covered the phone. You are not part of this conversation. The system already duplicated routes because two centers were treating each other as overflow. We corrected that. No, you moved the pressure. Daniel turned away. Execute the transfer. The call ended. Elena stood. We're going to the command center. Claire looked at Marcus. The interview is concluded. Elena said, no, bring him. Daniel's expression sharpened. For what purpose? To look at the system he understands better than the people defending it. Marcus should have refused. His phone showed another message from his temporary supervisor. You missed the shift without approval. Assignment terminated. Beneath it was a message from Sophie. 4:45. Don't forget. He followed Elena. The command center occupied the 40th floor. The room curved around a wall of screens showing routes, weather, facility conditions, and delivery projections. Dozens of analysts worked at tiered desks. The atmosphere appeared controlled, but Marcus recognized the signs of a room losing command. People repeated the same information. Managers spoke louder instead of more clearly. Alerts multiplied faster than decisions. Daniel entered and immediately began issuing orders. Create a separate medical lane. Suspend non-contract freight. Call Newark and confirm staff. Marcus stood near the entrance with Claire. She spoke quietly. You should not be here. I agree. Then why are you? Because your CEO asked. She is reacting emotionally. Marcus looked at her. She does not seem emotional. Everyone is emotional when reputation is involved. A large display showed Newark's facility map. 3 loading zones were red. 2 were yellow. The employee presence count read 0 in the affected area. Marcus watched the numbers change. Why does it say no employees are inside? Claire looked at the screen. Presumably because there are none. Presumably is not a safety procedure. A man at the nearest desk turned. The system clears personnel presence when lanes lock. Marcus stepped closer. It clears the count. It assumes evacuation before lock. Does it verify? The lock sequence requires supervisor confirmation. Who confirmed? The analyst checked. Automatic protocol. Marcus looked toward Daniel. Your system assumes people left because the system told them to leave. Daniel was speaking to Newark and did not respond. Marcus asked the analyst, how does it detect work? Badge proximity and handheld scanner activity. Does the storm affect either? Possibly. Then 0 could mean no signal. Claire said, or no people. Marcus watched a small square flash in the east sorting zone. What is that? Equipment movement. What equipment? The analyst opened the detail. No assigned vehicle. The square moved again. Marcus said, someone is pushing something manually. Daniel ended the call. Newark confirmed evacuation. Who confirmed it? Marcus asked. The local system. Not a person. Daniel walked toward him. The building is automated. People are not. A new voice came through an emergency audio channel. Chicago, this is Luis Mendoza. Does anyone copy? The analyst opened the line. Luis's breathing was heavy. We have a door failure in East Sorting. I've got people on the wrong side of the freight barrier. Daniel approached the microphone. How many? I don't know yet. At least 7. The employee count still read 0. Marcus looked at Claire. She did not meet his eye. Daniel asked, why wasn't the evacuation confirmed manually? We lost 2 supervisors last month. I'm covering 3 zones. Daniel's jaw tightened. That does not answer the question. It does if you were listening. Marcus looked at the system. Can they leave through the medical dock? Luis answered. Not while the automated freight barrier is closed. Can it be opened locally? The controls are locked during routing conflict. Daniel turned to the analysts. Clear the route conflict. An analyst replied. The system won't clear while active freight remains in both lanes. Then move the freight. Remote vehicles are not responding consistently. Marcus opened his folder. Claire saw the card. This is not the time. This is exactly the time. He placed the red card on the desk. People trapped. He placed the second item beneath it. Medical refrigeration losing backup. Yellow. Contract deadlines. Yellow. Daniel heard him. You do not have authority to classify any. No, I have I. Remove him from the operations floor. Elena stepped between them. He stayed. Daniel lowered his voice. You are letting a candidate interfere in a live emergency. I am letting someone ask questions our reports did not. Daniel looked around the room. Everyone was listening. Public disagreement was something executives avoided until avoiding it became impossible. Luis returned to the line. I found 4 more people. 11. The number from the open. Marcus looked at the facility map. Where are they? East Sorting and the scanner cord. What is between them and the medical dock? Freight barriers. What is inside the medical dock? Refrigerated shipments and the manual generator panel. Marcus asked, can someone reach the panel? 1 technician is near it, but the system keeps cycling the security door. Daniel said, restore the Newark network locally. An analyst answered, local restoration could activate the freight vehicle. Marcus moved toward the main control terminal. Then isolate Newark. Daniel blocked him. That would freeze the eastern routing network. Only if the centers are still linked through shared overflow. They are. Then isolate the entire network. The room changed. Several analysts turned. Claire said, absolutely not. Daniel stared at Mark. You are suggesting we shut down more than 1/3 of national operations. I am suggesting you stop moving machinery around people you cannot locate. The employees were ordered to evacuate. And the system says they did. Daniel pointed to the 0 on the screen. Marcus pointed to Luis's open audio line. A person says they did not. Elena asked, how long to isolate? An analyst answered carefully. 2 minutes to initiate. Full halt in 6. Financial impact? Daniel replied, catastrophic. Marcus looked at Elena. Recoverable? Daniel said, that is not the point. It is the only point. Marcus held up the red card. People are red. Money is yellow. Daniel reached for the console. Elena said, prepare isolation. Claire moved toward her. Elena, the board will not support this without verified casualty risk. We have 11 employees trapped. We have an unconfirmed report from 1 supervisor during a storm. Marcus looked at Claire. What would count as confirmed? Independent verification. The sensors fail. Then we cannot make a billion-dollar decision based on uncertainty. Marcus answered. Uncertainty is why you stop the machine. Daniel ordered the analysts not to proceed. Elena ordered them to continue. No one moved. The room had 2 authorities and no decision. Marcus looked at the control interface. At Fairland, the shutdown function had been hidden behind a 3-step sequence to prevent accidental use. He recognized the logic. He moved toward the terminal. Daniel grabbed his arm. Do not touch that. Marcus pulled free. The analyst at the desk whispered, isolation is under emergency route. Marcus opened the menu. Claire said, security. Marcus found the command. He looked at Elena. If I do this, it is your decision. Elena understood what he was offering. Responsibility, not permission. Yes, she said. It is my decision. Marcus initiated the shutdown. The screens turned red in sequence. Newark isolated. Philly isolated. Boston isolated. Eastern Network hold. Daniel's face went pale. Security, remove him. He is not an employee, and he just shut down our entire Eastern Network. 2 officers entered. Claire reached for the tablet. Give me that before you make this. Marcus held it against his chest. Daniel pointed toward the financial loss count. Every minute this system stays down costs us nearly $400,000. Marcus looked toward Luis's broken video connection. You're counting delayed boxes. I'm counting the people you locked behind them. The scene had returned to where the story began. But now Marcus knew the price of what he had done. His job was gone. His temporary assignment was gone. The rent was due. Sophie would stand on a stage in less than 2 hours and search the front. Marcus could restore the system and perhaps still leave with an apology, a payment, or even the position Elena had implied. Instead, he watched the map. Luis said. The freight barriers stopped moving. Marcus stepped closer to the audio terminal. Can your people reach the manual relay? Not from East Shore. What about the technician by medical? She can reach one path. Have her open the scanner corridor first. Daniel interrupted. That corridor does not lead outside. It leads to the manual access tunnel. That tunnel is not rated for evacuation. It does not need to be the final exit. It needs to get them away from automated. Luis confirmed. He's right. We can move them behind the maintenance wall. Daniel turned to Elena. He is improvising from a map. Marcus replied. Your emergency plan assumes the automated doors function. They do not. The maintenance wall is the only route not controlled by routing software. Luis said, sending the technician now. A camera feed flicked. A woman in a reflective jacket moved through a dark corridor with a flashlight. Daniel watched despite. Claire stood beside the personnel dashboard. Why were only 2 supervisors covering the facility? No one answered. She opened a staffing pack. Luis's voice came through. Because we lost 4 experienced people after the new scheduling rule. Claire turned toward the screen. What rule? Daniel said. This is not relevant to the immediate emergency. Marcus looked at him. It is, if there were supposed to be people checking the system. Claire entered her credentials. A staffing report appeared. The Newark facility had reduced senior overnight supervisors from 6 to 2. The removed employees had not been terminated for performance. They had been classified as low-flexibility personnel after declining rotating schedule. Claire stared at the category. Her category. She had created it. Daniel said, those changes were part of operational optimization. You used the hiring model for existing staff? Claire asked. We used the availability index. That was not approved for termination. They were reassigned or offered alternatives. 3 resigned. Daniel turned toward the analyst. Focus on the emergency. Marcus said, this is the emergency. Elena looked at Claire. Did your system identify caregivers? It identified schedule constraints, which are more common among caregivers. The model did not use family staff. It did not need to. It used the concept. Claire removed her glasses. For the first time that day, she had no immediate defense. On the Newark feed, the technician reached the pen. Luis instructed her to pull the manual release. The scanner corridor doors opened. 7 workers moved through. 4 remained in East Shore. The medical refrigeration alert dropped below 20% backup capacity. Marcus asked, where are the remaining 4? Luis answered, behind outbound lane 6. The freight barrier is jammed. Can the technician release it? Not without restoring local power, Daniel said. Restore only the safety. The analyst shook his head. The system does not separate safety from routing. It was consolidated last quarter. Marcus looked at Daniel. Who approved that? Daniel said nothing. Elena asked again. Who approved it? I did. Why? To reduce response latency. Did safety review it? Engineering certified compliance. Did operate? Daniel's silence was enough. Marcus studied the system logs. A pattern appeared in the override history. Manual checks had been removed from the routing sequence 6 weeks earlier. The timing matched the sudden improvement Daniel had presented to the board. Average processing time had fallen 11%. So had human verification. Marcus enlarged the log. These warnings were not ignored by accident. Daniel stepped toward. You do not understand the full context. The system generated 14 conflict warnings before the storm. Warnings occur every day. And someone reclassified them. Daniel looked at the screen. The warnings had been marked non-critical automation. The authorizing credentials belonged to his department. Claire read the reduce unnecessary human intervention before renewal. Elena turned toward Daniel. You removed verification to improve the number. We removed redundant. 11 people are trapped because of an unprecedented storm. Luis interrupted through the speaker. The storm did not remove the checks. You did. The room fell silent again. Daniel looked toward the open audio channel. You should focus on your facility. I did, Luis answered. That's why I reported this 3 weeks ago. Elena looked at the analysts. Find the report. A search began. Daniel said, We do not have time for. Marcus responded, You had time when the report arrived. The refrigeration backup dropped to 16%. The 4 remaining workers were still trapped. Marcus traced the map. The freight barrier blocking lane 6 shared power with the medical generator control. Restoring the barrier could cut refrigeration entirely. Leaving it closed meant workers remained exposed to freezing temperatures and unstable equipment. Marcus removed the blue card. Need help? He placed it beneath the red one. Elena asked, Fire department, utility provider, anyone with independent power equipment. Daniel. External emergency response triggers mandatory disclosure to clients and regulators. Marcus looked at him. Yeah. We can resolve this in turn. You have not. Daniel lowered his voice. Mr. Cole, think carefully. This company can offer you more than 1 day of temporary work. We can correct what happened with your application. We can compensate you for the Fairland material. But if you create a public emergency over an incident that can be contained, you will make cooperation impossible. Marcus understood the offer. It was not spoken clearly enough to become evident. It was clear enough to become a choice. A job, credit, money, possibly enough to save the apartment. In exchange, he needed to allow the company to describe the crisis as a local failure and solve it before outsiders arrived. Marcus looked at Elena. She had heard it too. Daniel continued. You wanted a chance. I am giving you. Marcus thought of Sophie moving the rent notice to red. He thought of the front row. He thought of Hannah tying the blue tie and telling him he looked like someone who knew what he was doing. Knowing what to do had never been the hardest part. The hardest part was doing it when the correct decision charged a price immediately and paid nothing you could. Marcus pressed the emergency services. Daniel lunged toward the console. Elena stepped between them. Do not touch. Marcus contacted the Chicago coordination desk and requested emergency assistance in Newark. He gave the facility address, the number of trapped employees, the electrical failure, and the refrigeration. Claire stared at him. You just reported the. I reported an emergency. Daniel turned to Elena. If you allow this, the contract is over. Elena looked at the screens. No. The contract may be over because we created an unsafe system and hit its. You approved the performance. Yes. The answer stopped. Elena walked to the central microphone. This is Elena Ward. Keep the Eastern Network isolated. Cooperate fully with Newark Emergency Service. Preserve all logs and internal communication. No records are to be altered. Daniel said, You're making a public admission before legal review. I am giving an operational. She looked toward Claire. Freeze all employment actions connected to the availability and. Claire nodded slowly. The fire department reached Newark in 9 minutes. To Marcus, it felt like. During that time, the medical backup dropped to 11%. Luis kept the trapped employees speaking through handheld radios to ensure no one lost consciousness in the car. Marcus coordinated the facility map with the emergency. He did not issue commands as though he held authority. He asked the people on the ground what they could see. He marked what they knew. He separated assumptions from verified facts. When the fire captain proposed cutting power to the barrier, Marcus pointed out the shared refrigeration. When Daniel proposed restarting the system for 30 seconds, Luis explained that automated vehicles could move without warning. Together, they created another. The emergency crew brought a portable generator to the external maintenance. The technician inside disconnected the medical unit from the shared. Power shifted. The barrier released 6 inches. Firefighters widened the opening manually. The first trapped worker crawled through, then the second. The third emerged, supporting the fourth, whose ankle had been injured when freight shifted. Luis counted. All 11 are out. No one in the command center celebrated. Relief was too heavy for celebration. The medical unit held at 6% backup until external power. The shipments were transferred. No medication was lost. No employee suffered life-threatening injury. The Eastern network remained down for another hour while each facility completed manual verification. The financial counter crossed $28 million. Daniel stared at it as though it were a. Elena stared at the employees leaving Newark on the screen. Marcus looked at the time. 4:28. Sophie's presentation began in 17 minutes. He collected the cards. The red one had bent at the corner. Elena approached him. "Where are you going?" "My daughter's school." "We need a statement." "You have one." You were central to the response. So was Luis. So was the technician. So were the firefighters. Marcus removed the visitor badge and handed it to her. "I promised the front." Claire joined. "We will need to discuss what happened in the end." Marcus looked at. "You rejected me." The automated screen. "You defended." Claire accepted the distinction. "Yeah." Daniel stood behind them. He had been instructed to surrender access while an internal investigation began. His expression toward Marcus contained anger, humiliation, and something close to respect. "You think shutting down a network proves you can run?" Marcus answered. "Knowing when to shut it down." Daniel looked away. Elena said, "A car will take you to the school." Marcus nearly refused. Then he looked at the time. "Blue. Need help." He had spent 5 years treating that category as a failure. The car moved through downtown traffic with hazard lights on. Marcus called Sophie's school. No one answered. He called Ms. Voice. At 4:42, the car stopped behind a line of vehicles 2 blocks from the school. Marcus got out and his dress shoes slipped on packed snow. He crossed the playground as parents entered through the side. Inside the auditorium, the lights had already. Children waited near the stage. Marcus moved down the aisle, searching for an open. The first row was full. His chest tightened. Then a woman stood and waved. Paulette, their neighbor, had saved a chair beside. "You're late," she whispered. "Not yet." Marcus sat as the first class. Sophie's class waited behind the. He removed the red card from his folder. The edge was bent. The words were not. Sophie had added them that morning in purple. "People first. Things can be replaced." Beneath that in small. "Dad doesn't forget people." Marcus pressed his thumb over the word. Sophie walked onto the stage with 6 other children. Her eyes searched the room. At first, she looked toward the back. Then, finally, the front. She saw. Marcus raised. Sophie's shoulders dropped. It was a tiny movement, but he understood. She had been preparing not to find. Now she spoke. The children began their presentation. Marcus did not check his phone. He did not calculate them. He did not wonder whether the company would call. For 9 minutes, only one thing was. After the presentation, Sophie ran into the aisle and wrapped her arms around. I said I would. You always say that. I. She pulled back and touched the blue. You wore. I did. Did you get the. Marcus looked at Paulette, who pretended not to listen. I don't know. Was the interview? It became something. Did you use the cards? Yes. Did they? They saved 11 people. Sophie stared at him. You're joking. I am. From what? A very complicated bad. Did you put people first? Yes. She. Then they. That evening, Marcus returned home to 3 missed calls from Elena Ward, 1 from Claire Donovan, and 2 from an unknown legal. There was also an email from his temporary employment agency confirming that his assignment had ended. The rent notice remained in the. Marcus reheated soup while Sophie described every mistake made during the presentation. She had forgotten one line. A boy named Cameron had entered early. The cardboard skyline had fallen back. No one did. Therefore, according to her system, the mistakes were yellow. At 8:17, someone. Marcus opened the door. Elena stood in the hallway wearing the camel-colored coat from the elevator. No assistant, no driver. She held his visitor. Marcus did not invite her in immediately. How did you get your application? That feels worse after today. You're right. She held out the badge. You left this. It was temporary. So was the designation. Marcus looked at her. Elena said, May I? Sophie appeared behind him. Are you the elevator? Elena glanced at Marcus. He closed his eyes. You said she didn't tell you who she was. Elena answered, I didn't. That's rude. Yes. Marcus stepped aside. Elena entered the apartment. Her eyes moved over the cards on the refrigerator, the rent notice partly visible in the drawer, the school materials on the kitchen table, and the framed photograph of Hannah beside. Sophie sat at the. Did you hire him? Elena removed her coat. I came to talk about that. Then you didn't. Marcus said, Sophie, finish your reading. I can read here. She gathered her book but stopped beside Elena. My dad doesn't need a. Elena looked at her carefully. Sophie went to the bedroom and left the door slightly. Marcus remained. Elena placed the visitor badge on the. Daniel has been placed on administrative leave pending an independent investigation. That was. The evidence was extensive. She voluntarily suspended the availability model and offered to step back from the. Offered? Marcus folded his arms. Why are you here? To offer you a position. He shook his head before she finished. No. You have not heard. I heard Daniel's. This is not his. It is still a job offered after a crisis because the CEO feels responsible. I am responsible. That does not make me qualified. No. What you did today makes you qualified. What I did today does not prove I can perform the role for a year. It proves more than most. Then your interviews. Elena almost smiled. That is becoming. Marcus looked toward Sophie's. I will not become the story your company uses to prove it learned. I am not asking. You came to my. Because you would not return my. I was at my daughter's school. You know too much about where I. Elena nodded. I handled this. Marcus waited. She opened the folder sheet. The original position. Operations Coordination Manager. Standard 6-month performance review. Full salary range, not entry. Defined core hours, documented emergency rotation, and the same evaluation requirements applied. Any other. Marcus did not touch the document. And the Fairland. Separate compensation and formal attribution, subject to review by independent. I do not want money tied to. It is not. Public disclosure. The investigation will not be concealed. We are notifying clients, regulators, and employees. Daniel said the contract could. It may. And we'll decide whether I remain CEO after the investigation. Marcus had not expected. Elena looked toward the colored. I approved the targets. I approved Claire's model. I approved the automation experiment. Daniel hid warnings, but he did so inside pressure I created. You didn't know people were. I created a company where I could plausibly not. Marcus. Elena remained standing until he gestured toward the other. Why me? He asked. Because you understand. There are thousands of people who understand. You also understand the distance between a system and the people living under. That sounds like a slogan. It does. Try it. Elena looked at the refrigerator. You noticed 11 people our system had reduced to. Marcus said. You recognized your own work after we removed your name. You saw that Claire's hiring model and Daniel's staffing decisions were creating the same kind of blind. And when Daniel offered you what you needed most, you refused to let him buy your. I almost. Elena looked at him. Marcus. For about 3 seconds, I thought about the rent. I thought about the. I thought about telling myself the firefighters would be called if things became. But you didn't. That does not mean I was not. It means your decision cost. Marcus looked at the. I want Luis involved in the system. Elena nodded. The Newark super. And at least one hourly operator from every major. That can be. Not selected by Daniel's replacements. Selected by the. That will be more common. Then the system will learn whether blue means help or Decker. Elena looked toward the blue. I want every candidate rejected under the availability index to have their application. That could be thousands. We cannot promise interviews to all. I did not say interviews. I said. Elena considered it. Caregiving gaps cannot be treated as evidence of low. We can remove family LinkedIn. No. You can evaluate what people did during the. That creates privacy. Then ask what skills they developed without demanding personal. Elena wrote it down. Marcus, what? You came prepared to offer me a job. You did not come prepared to negotiate the company. Then come back when you. Elena closed the folder. You are I am asking for the process you said I did. What is that? Interview me again, with clear criteria. Compare me to the other candidates. Pay me for the work I do during the review. If I earn the position, hire me. If I don't, do not turn today into. Elena studied him. You may lose. That does not frighten you? Then why take the. Because my daughter already knows I needed. I don't want her learning that dignity is something you trade when the rent. The bedroom door opened slightly. Sophie had heard him. Elena. I will send revised terms tomorrow. Marcus walked her to the door. Before leaving, she looked at the blue. Do you use that one? Not. Neither do I. Over the next 2 weeks, the Ward Meridian investigation became. The hospital distribution contract was suspended. Not. Federal safety officials reviewed the Newark. Daniel's emails showed that he had received repeated warnings about the removal of manual. He had not intended to harm. He had intended to produce the performance improvement expected before contract. That distinction mattered. It mattered less to the workers who had spent 40 minutes trapped behind machinery the system believed was operating an empty. Claire's hiring model faced a separate. It had never used race, gender, parenthood, disability, or marital status directly. It did not need to. It penalized employment gaps, address changes, reduced schedule flexibility, interrupted education, and transitions between full-time and temporary. Each factor appeared. Together, they created a highly accurate method for eliminating people whose lives had required adaptation. Claire requested to meet Marcus without. They sat in a small conference room on the 23rd. No glass wall, no Daniel, no empty chair waiting for a powerful. Claire placed a printed report between. I ran the rejection. Marcus looked at the pages. Candidates with caregiving gaps were eliminated at 3 times the rate of candidates with uninterrupted employment. People who completed degrees later in life were classified as less. Temporary workers were penalized even when their contracts ended. You sound. I believe the model removed subject. It removed the part where someone might. Claire accepted the criticism. My mother worked 3 jobs when I was. Mark. She changed apartments 6 times before I finished high school. I spent my career becoming the kind of person no one could classify as un. And then, you classified everyone. Claire's face. It was not a dramatic. She did not cry. She did not ask forgiveness. She told him exactly what she. Marcus respected that more than an apology designed to make her feel. What happens now? He asked. I lose oversight of. Is that enough? No. What are you going to help review every candidate? You do not get to decide whether your own work was un. No. But I know where. Marcus looked at the. Why should I try? You should. That is why the review will include external auditors, employee representatives, and documented criteria. What about the people already? Claire looked toward. We found the same index used in staffing and promotion. More than I am ready to say, without verifying. That means a lot. Marcus thought of Luis covering 3. Do not wait until you are comfortable with. Claire met his. That is what Elena told. The second interview took place 1 week. This time, Marcus sat before a panel of 5 people. Elena was not among them. Neither was. The panel included an operations executive from another, a facility supervisor, an hourly employee, an external safety specialist, and a human resources representative who had not worked on the original model. Marcus was given the same case study as the other final case. He was told exactly how it would be. For 2 hours, he analyzed labor allocation, medical shipping risk, cost control, and emergency. He made one. He underestimated how long it would take to train temporary workers on a new scanning process. The hourly employee challenged. Marcus did not defend the number. He asked why it was. She explained that training time had been calculated without language support and assumed everyone learned at the same. Marcus revised the plan and added paid practice. Afterward, the panel asked whether he believed the newer crisis made him uniquely entitled to the. No, he said. Because doing the right thing in one emergency does not prove I can lead well every ordinary. How I respond when people disagree. Whether I share credit. Whether the system still works when I am not in. Whether the people below me know more after I leave than before I. The facility supervisor asked, what would you change? Marcus placed 4 colored cards on. I would stop pretending every problem deserves the same kind of urgency. 3 days later, Elena. Marcus was in the grocery store comparing the price of 2 cereal. You got the job. He held the phone against his ear. Based on. 4 ranked you first. 1 ranked you. Who ranked me second? The hourly. Marcus smiled. Good. You are not offended? No, she was the one who corrected my train. She said you changed your answer faster than any. That does not mean she had to rank me. Elena. The offer is being sent now. Marcus looked at the price. He had imagined this moment during every difficult. He had expected relief to arrive. Instead, it came quietly. A number on. A cereal box in his hand. A daughter waiting. Thank you, he said. You earned it. Marcus closed it. This time, the sentence did not sound like charity. His first day began at 8:12. He arrived at 7:34, not because he wanted anyone, because he had promised Sophie he would be home for dinner. and predictable beginnings made predictable endings more likely. On his new desk were a laptop, a company badge, and 4 blank card holders in red, yellow, blue. Elena had placed. Marcus moved the blue holder closest to. Luis joined the operational review. The Newark technician who opened the maintenance corridor participated from the facility. Representatives from 6 centers challenged the proposed safety. Some disliked the cards. One operator called them. Marcus did not defend the. He asked whether the categories made decisions. The system was redesigned around recoverability rather than executive. Human safety alerts could not be suppressed by performance. Manual verification could not be removed without operator. No facility could report 0 personnel merely because a network assumed evacuation. Claire led the candidate review under independent supervision. More than 800 rejected applicants received a new. Not all. Some still lacked technical qualifications. Some had applied for roles that did not fit. But hundreds were finally evaluated on evidence rather than inferred. Daniel resigned before the investigation could. The company found that he had violated reporting and safety. But it also found that the board's incentive structure had rewarded exactly the behavior it later. Elena published both. Her position survived the board vote by. The hospital contract returned 6 months later under external. Marcus never became a celebrity inside the company. He did not. He became known for asking one question during operation. What happens if we are? Executives initially thought he was cautious. Operators understood that he was asking who would pay for them. At home, the rent notice disappeared from. Marcus did not move them. For 3 months, he rebuilt. For 6 months, he kept the temporary agency number in his. For nearly a year, he woke some mornings expecting an email saying the position had been. Stability did not erase fear on the first. It gave fear fewer reasons to be. Sophie entered 4. She stopped asking whether they would need to. Marcus attended the winter concert, parent conference, science fair, and one deeply confusing school play in which Sophie portrayed a talking. He missed one soccer game because of a genuine emergency. He told her 2 days. She placed it under yellow. On the anniversary of Hannah's death, Marcus and Sophie visited the. They carried the blue tie in a small box. Marcus had stopped wearing it every day because the fabric was becoming too. Sophie asked whether Hannah would have liked. She would have complained about. Would she like Elena? Would she like? Marcus looked out over. She would like that I come. The following Monday, Elena asked Marcus to join her on the 35th. They entered the same elevator where they had first. A young woman stood near the panel, whispering answers from a printed. She wore shoes with worn soles and a jacket slightly too large. Marcus saw Elena. The young woman practiced a response about. She used the phrase cross-functional. Marcus looked at Elena. Elena looked at him. Neither. When the elevator opened on 35, Elena stepped. Then she stopped the doors with one. She looked at the. Try that answer again without using any words you would not say to her. The woman stared. Marcus stepped out beside. The doors closed behind. You missed your floor the first time. You could have. You would have changed the answers. That was. Sophie already explained. They walked toward the executive. Marcus's new badge hung from his jacket. It carried his name. That afternoon, he returned to his office before leaving. The 4 colored cards remained on. Red, yellow, blue, green. The red card now represented human safety, irreversible loss, and promises that shaped. The yellow card held problems that mattered but could be. The blue card listed every person who needed to be called before a decision was made with. The green card reminded executives that some things could wait, no matter how loudly they demanded. Marcus placed Sophie's original red card in a frame on. The purple writing had faded slightly. People, things can be. Dad doesn't forget people. He checked the time. 5. A message from Sophie appeared. Dinner. Marcus shut down his computer. Outside his office, a manager hurried toward him. We have a problem. Marcus stopped. Is anyone? No. Will anything be permanently lost? Probably. Can someone else begin? Yes. Then the manager looked uncertain. Marcus picked up his coat. He turned off the office light at the hour. Behind him, the colored cards remained visible in the face. Organizing a company that had once measured value only by what it. And for the first time in years, Marcus did not leave work afraid that choosing his daughter would cost him everything. He entered the elevator, pressed the lobby button, and watched the doors close.